share what I'm going to share today, because if you have ever struggled with food, the relationship that you have with your body, and you're wondering if things can ever be different, I want you to know that there's so much hope no matter where you come from. No matter how far down the scale you've gone, no matter how many times you've tried and failed, no matter your age, no matter where you are in your life, the lack of resources that you feel like you have, you can change your relationship with your body and with food. I'm living testimony of this. And so in this video, I'm going to share a real story of my life and where I come from, which is severe, and I'm talking severe bulimia, self-hatred, such a unbelievably horrible eating disorder, food addiction, so harsh on my body. My thoughts were constantly on how I could improve and I'm not good enough, to where I am today 20 years later. So I have been on a path of a spiritual path since the age of 29. So for the past 20 years, I'm now 50. So I guess you could say almost 21 years. I have been on a spiritual path of healing my relationship with food and my body. And so where I presently am today at 50 years old, hello to in, I have freedom with food. I have the best relationship with my body that I've ever had in my life. And I'm 50, and it has taken some time to go from where I was to where I am today. But I'm here to not sell any kind of product or give you any kind of a fast track kind of tactic or anything, other than just to share a real story of what has happened, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And my intention behind this was, well, first was because somebody asked me in one of my social media pages, how did you heal from addiction? And I decided, after seeing that question, I was like, you know what, I'm going to make a video on this so that anyone who asks me this question from here going forward, I can send them this video. So this might be long, so grab a drink, grab some popcorn, grab a nice glass of tea or something, and I want to get into it. I've written some notes so that I can have a pretty good outline of the timeline of where I've been, and there's going to be a lot in here, but this is a true story about how really God has done the miraculous in me. And it wasn't until I dove headfirst into a spiritual way of living that I finally found true freedom and true transformation. Whereas before, it just felt like nothing stuck, and no matter what I did, I was just going around in circles, and it was like Groundhog Day all the time. I would get a little bit ahead, and then I would just end up going back to where I was, and it was causing a lot of shame and insecurity and lack of confidence and a lot of lack of trust in myself. And I'm just grateful that I'm not in that place anymore. I can feel it though, however, as though it's real, as though I can feel it in my body right now, like how much I can still remember what it was like to be in that space. And although things in my life are not absolutely perfect, no one's life is perfect, even if it looks perfect on social media. My life is not perfect, but there's no one else's life that I would want but my own. And I am so grateful, because I really do have a beautiful relationship with food and with my body. So I want to start off with where it all kind of began. So when I was about 13 or 14, I discovered the world of binging and purging. I was someone who loved sugar. I loved it. And it was restricted in my home. So when there were opportunities for me to just have whatever I wanted, for instance, when I would go to my best friend's house at the time, there were no restrictions on how much she could eat when she got home from school. And that was not something that I was familiar with in my own home. And so I'd go over to her house after school, and then I would just eat a bunch of chocolate chip cookies. And I would start to panic that I had eaten so much and I would gain weight. And so I discovered putting my finger down my throat and getting rid of it instantaneously. And I think one of the first times I ever did purge my food, it clogged up the toilet in my best friend's home and it got all over the bathroom floor and it was disgusting. And I panicked and I was like, I can't let anyone know that I did this. So I took all their towels and I cleaned it up and it was gross. It was awful, but that didn't stop me because I had found the solution to my desire, my insatiable desire to want to eat sweets and my feeling of not being able to control that. So fast forward, after many, many years of binging and purging, increasingly getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, in conjunction with me discovering alcohol in college, and then the same thing, drugs and alcohol were restricted in my home. I mean, my parents didn't encourage me to go do drugs or anything, but there wasn't a space for me to try it out and to feel it out. It was just, I just never even did it. And so when I went to college, I went full on and drank alcoholically from the very start and was binge drinking and blacking out. So for many years, I was binging and purging my food and drinking a lot to the point of blackout. And this got worse and worse and worse. And I tried my best to keep it a secret. And it got where my life was beyond unmanageable. And I was in a lot of pain and I didn't know how to stop this. I was ashamed of what I was doing. And I especially did not want anyone to know that I was sticking my finger down my throat, because I would go to gas station bathrooms and throw up because I didn't want anyone to hear it. And so I would lock myself in private bathrooms a lot of the time, which is just not a sexy thing for a woman to be doing. So I didn't really want anybody to know. But boyfriends broke up with me along the way because as much as I tried to hide it, they were privy to it and could tell that I needed help. And although they cared about me and loved me, they needed to go their separate way from me so that I could try to find myself and love myself. And I would just feel hopeless, helpless, and I didn't know what to do. So when I was 29 years old, I cried out to God, and I had not really wanted anything to do with God up until that point. I grew up in a religious home where we would go to Catholic Mass every Sunday, although when I look back, it was very, very religious. And I'm so grateful that my parents introduced me to Jesus and that I did my sacraments of First Communion, because I had a really good upbringing with just at least knowing about the story of Jesus and God, and I'm grateful for it all. But it was definitely not in the kind of way that I feel I have a relationship with God now, and it is what it is. A lot of people have the same story. It's the tale as old as time. I'm no different than the majority of the people on the planet. So yeah, I grew up with, fearing God and all this stuff and wanted nothing to do with God. And then when I was 29 and I was at death's doorstep, and by that I truly mean that I was probably going to die very, very soon from the crazy amounts of alcohol that I was drinking and how much I was binging and purging around the clock. I was starting to throw up blood. I was in so much pain all the time. My lymph nodes were completely swollen. My throat was swollen. I had sores all over my mouth. I had sores all over my hands from constantly shoving my finger down my throat. I no longer had a gag reflex. And it was dark. It was really bad. And I panicked one day because I was like, I don't know what to do. I wanted to run away from my own self, and I cried out to God. And then I finally told someone what was going on with me. That person recommended that I go to a recovery program I check myself into some kind of rehab, like a 60-90 day rehab. So I went to the one that was in my town at the time. I was living in Northern California, and I felt so hopeless because after meeting with one of the counselors, they informed me that it was going to be pretty expensive. And I just was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to afford this. My family can't afford it. I can't afford it. And I left there feeling, literally, I left there feeling like there was absolutely no solution. And if you've ever felt in your life a lack of hope, can feel like one of the most bleak and dark things that you could possibly feel. We need to feel some semblance of hope. So if you're in any space like that at all, or if you know someone who's in a space like that and they just need hope, please send them this video. So that's where I was. I went in my car after meeting with this counselor, and I was just like, I'm a goner. Like, I'm gonna have to live like this for the rest of my life. And someone suggested that I go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, which I was like, do you really think that that is what's going to help me? I mean, do you understand? I'm going to die. Like, I'm literally going to die. It was so bad. I had no food in my house. My house was a mess. My house was just in shambles. I had 2 cats at the time. I wasn't feeding them, the poor things. I know this is so drastically gross, but I'm just trying to paint a picture of just how bad it was. I was binging and purging so much around the clock that there was like throw up on the walls, that it would splash into the toilet and then it would splash up on the wall, and I didn't even wash it. I what was the point? This was my life, and I had just kind of surrendered to the fact that this is how life was going to be, and I tried to find the good in this. And I didn't even have any food in my home, because if I even brought anything into my home, I had no control over it, and I would just eat voraciously and then panic about possibly gaining weight, and then I would immediately have to throw out my food. And yeah, I needed behavior modification. I needed a whole entire new way of living. And little did I know that after crying out to God and telling this one person that I needed help, and this person telling me that I needed to go to this recovery home, and then this other person telling me that I should go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, was not what I thought the solution would be whatsoever. And often in life, we can be praying for something, and then God will hand us something, and we're like, no, it's absolutely not that. That's not what I was expecting, but like, it's the very thing that we need. And it was the very thing that I needed. So I went to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I heard what I heard. It just felt strange to me and weird and foreign, but the people in that room were talking in such a way that gave me a little bit of like, wow, I think these people know what I'm going through. It sounds like they know what I'm going through. Like they get it on a level that other people don't understand. And I ended up getting a sponsor in that program. And, I admitted I had a problem. I admitted I was powerless over this. I admitted that I couldn't fix it. I admitted that I needed a higher power. And at the same time in my life, I also, I went to a movie, and I still to this day don't know why I went to this movie by myself. I don't know what compelled me. I went to the movie The Passion of the Christ to go see a movie about Jesus, even though I wanted nothing to do with Jesus or God, like for decades. Hi, Dash. And I went to this movie, and it's crazy because I went to the movie drunk on top of that. But in this movie, I saw Jesus getting whipped and beaten for my sin. And I was like I was wrestling with that. I was like, what does this mean? What if this is true? What does that mean for my life? And what it meant for me at the time was I was in shackles. I was in hell, and I was doing it to myself. And yet here was Jesus going through hell, literal hell, to take on my hell so that I don't have to. It still gets me to this day. I really somehow just it just fucking landed for me that day. I was like, okay, so I'm going through this hell, my own hell that I'm doing. But Jesus came to take on all of the pain, all of the stuff that I was doing. He came to literally take it and put it on himself take the beating, take the lashing, take the pain so that I can be set free. And the only thing that would be required of me would be to just believe it and then be set free, and then believe that I was changed in that moment, believe that at that moment something spiritually shifted in me, and then act accordingly. And it was just in this moment, and I don't want to say everything changed overnight, but I definitely feel like something happened in that moment spiritually, and it just landed for me. And so when I was crying out and just saying, I need a different life, I need something different, I don't want to live this way anymore. I'm willing to do anything. I'm willing to be, I want to be free. Because I remember going to this park and seeing all these people, and they were just living life. They were like jumping on their bike and playing frisbee. And here I was, just a prisoner to my own behaviors and feeling like I could never move forward in my life. I had all these dreams and goals of singing and doing art, but I couldn't do it. And it was baffling to me. And so, yeah, I cried out, and then I ended up getting into this 12-step program, and that was interesting. I remember having maybe about 30 days of sobriety and feeling different for sure. I mean, I was like, wow, I woke up clear-headed, and I felt like my dignity come back, and I felt like self-respect come back, and I found this community of people that understood what I was going through. But my relationship with food wasn't changing. In fact, what felt like was happening to me was that my relationship with food was getting worse. You could say maybe it was getting worse, or just I was so much more aware of it, because the alcohol problem had been literally just, I had no desire to drink at all. It was just gone. And I asked my AA sponsor at the time, like, what do I do about this food thing? And she humbly said, I don't know how to help you in that regard, because I'm not familiar with this kind of struggle, but I can point you in the direction of a program called FA. So I ended up going into a program. It's a 12-step program called FA, and it stands for Food Addicts in Recovery Anonymous. I remember going into a meeting for the first time and hearing someone at the front talk about how they struggled with food, struggled with bulimia. Like I was listening to my story, yet I was hearing a woman who no longer struggled anymore, and who was fit and vibrant and healthy and thin and blonde. And I was like, I need whatever these people have. I need to do what they're telling me that they did, and I need to just be with these people. But what I would need to do was I would need to get a sponsor in the program. I would need to adopt a certain way of living, which what they did, which means that I would put my food on a scale. I would call my food in. It's called calling your food in every day. So you get a sponsor, you get their phone number, and you get a meal plan. And pretty much everyone that comes into this program gets like the same starting meal plan, because most people in this food addiction program come into this program with a lot of weight that they had to lose. And I didn't have to lose weight because I was binging and purging around the clock. So my weight didn't necessarily stay on me because I was vomiting up the food. But I was still crazy when it came to food. So I started with this meal plan, and it was to the ounce of what you eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And absolutely 100% no flour, no sugar. Those are the addictive foods. No quantities. So what it would eliminate this desire or obsession or even ability to be able to binge, because your food would be written down to the ounce every day, and you would report that to your sponsor, and you would commit it. You would say, okay, this is exactly what I'm going to eat, and then you do that. And if you needed support throughout the day, you could call your sponsor and say, hey, I'm having a hard time, I'm going to a party, there's a chocolate cake there, I really want it. But you would stay on track with your program because you wanted a different life. And I was to the point of such desperation that I was like, sign me up. I want to do this. I don't care if you told me I had to tar and feather myself. I am going to do it. And I mean, that's not true, because when I first heard about this program, I was like, there's no fucking way in hell I'm going to do this. But after trying to weigh and measure my food by myself for a little while, I realized, no, I even though this sounds wackadoo and really restricting, and I want what they have. I don't want this hell anymore. So I was willing to go through anything really at that point. So I ended up weighing and measuring my food for a long time. I called my food in for 9.5 years to the T, never ate outside of my meal plan for 9.5 years. So I ate 3 times a day, and I did not eat flour and sugar. And by that, I mean, I did not have anything other than whole foods, vegetables, grains, meat, protein, Greek yogurt, oatmeal. I didn't have a single cracker, pizza, sandwich, bread, chocolate, chip, like bagel, nothing. I didn't even drink orange juice. I just drank water. And yeah, I believe that this program saved my life, and it helped me to break these behaviors, because my behaviors were so entrenched that I don't know what else would have helped me. I don't know. And in this program were some beautiful people, and I met the most beautiful people. I appreciate these people so much, literal angels that God just sent. I always talk about the Wizard of Oz and how it's very similar. Like I felt like this program was the Yellow Brick Road, and then the Scarecrow would show up, and the Tin Man, and all the people that I needed along the way to help me to get out of this hell that I was in. So I thought that I was going to have to be in this program for the rest of my life, because that was sort of the ideology of the program. If you're familiar with 12-step programs, that's the ideology of the 12-step method, is that once you're this, you're always this, and you're always going to have to be in AA, or you're always going to have to be in FA, and if you ever leave, then you're going to go back to who you were, because once you turn into a pickle, you can't go back into a cucumber. And so I believed it, and I was fine. I was like, well, anything's better than what I was doing. So, okay, if I have to weigh and measure my food for the rest of my life, then so be it. But what I didn't realize is that as my relationship with myself, and first and foremost, my relationship with God, healed throughout those 9.5 years, and I got so much more connected to myself, and talk about connected to my creativity. That's why today I just know that my mission, my calling in life, is to help people connect to their creativity, to help people to remember that they're so creative, and that you have the ability to create new thoughts, you have the ability to create art, to create magic, to create relationships, to create a whole new pathway for yourself when you co-create with God, when you reconnect back with God, because addiction is the opposite of connection, and expression is the opposite of depression. And that has certainly been the truth for me. So in those 9.5 years, wow, my relationship with myself, I found my voice again. So much happened in those 9.5 years. And the amazing thing is that after the 9.5 years, and I never saw this coming, ever. I did not expect this at all. But after those 9.5 years, I was asked to audition for a television show for body and face painting. And I was also asked if I wanted to teach at a body and face painting convention, both to which I was like, hell no, no way. There's no way I can do it. I was afraid I would not be able to do my program if I had said yes to these things. And it was more important to me to continue on this path of recovery and weighing and measuring my food than any kind of television show or any kind of semblance of fame. But nonetheless, circumstances would not allow me to say no. And I was approached several times, and it became very clear that this was the path that I needed to go down, was to say yes to it. So in saying yes to it, what happened, without getting into too much detail, and I don't mind getting into detail, but this is already like 24 minutes. I came to see that God was asking me to let go of this program, that it was what got me to this certain point, but I was going to have to let go of it to continue to go further. And it shifted everything for me. I mean, it was like my whole life changed in one day, and I saw it so clearly. Like, it was so clear to me. And I came home after saying yes to teaching at this convention. I came home and I was like, my life as I know it for the past 9.5 years is now changed. I mean, my life as I knew it as a bulimic and active alcoholic, changed once I got into a 12-step program and worked that, and then did that for 9.5 years. And then my life as I knew it changed again. And wow, those were some years. That was in 2016. Okay, so I got sober in 2006, and that's when I first started my journey, my spiritual recovery journey. It was 2006. Then it was 2016 when I left that program and started to learn to walk with the Holy Spirit, started to learn to walk with God one day at a time, one moment at a time, learning how to trust myself and not lean on a sponsor or a scale or food rules or restrictions, and losing fear and bringing in more love, bringing in more grace instead of shame, and slowly starting to build my own self trust. And when I say slow, I mean slow, because my nervous system needed to go at the pace that it could handle. So there were tiny victories, there were small risks that I would take. I remember when the first time I actually ate my food without weighing it on a scale after 9.5 years. I wouldn't put a single thing in my mouth without weighing it on the scale and it having been reported to a sponsor. So when I first let go of the scale, which took a while, I remember just gripping the countertop and just being like, Holy Spirit, please help me remember that you have given me the spirit of self-control. You have given me the spirit of power, of love, and of self-control, and you have not given me the spirit of fear. And I was like, help me to have this word actually be something that I live by, not something that I just read. And I had to just trust in that moment, because everything inside of me was like, you're gonna fuck up, you're gonna fail, you're a food addict, you're this, you're that, you're not gonna be able to control yourself. I mean, it was a battle. It was a battle, but I chose to renew my mind, because that's what God says, is to renew your mind. And at the same time that this was all happening, all these books were coming into my life. So again, this was 2016. There's a lot of education right now about neuroplasticity and how we can change our thoughts, literally. And I read this freaking book, and I drank it in. I was just like, oh my gosh, we can change our thoughts. This science is synonymous with the Bible and what the Bible is teaching me. So yeah, I dared to believe, even though I was needing to stack up more evidence that I wasn't a food addict than I was a food addict. Because first off, it was like, no, there's more evidence that you're a food addict than you're not a food addict. But slowly over time, all those voices of like, I'm broken, I'll always be a food addict, I'll never be able to trust myself, it started to stack in this opposite direction. And now I have far too much evidence now that I'm not a food addict than I am a food addict, that like I can't go back into this camp. Like, it's just like, it's impossible for me, because I have too many disconfirming events to confirm that I am not a food addict, that I do in fact have a spirit of power, of love, and of self-control. But I'm telling you, it was one of the hardest seasons of my entire life, because I felt like I was bushwhacking my way through some freaking forest trying to make a road. And it's nice when you come to a road and it's already been paved, but when you're the one that's trying to pave a freaking road and you don't know where you're going and there's no map. But I'm telling you, God was there every single step of the way. His word was there every step of the way, and I got the opportunity to lean on his word. Not on the way I felt, not on what other people say, not on my past and what experiences I had had. Over and over and over, I got to lean on his word. Do not remember the former things. Do you not see that I am doing a new thing in your life? And I had to focus my mind and will my mind to focus on the word. And it was literally like, no, we are not going to believe that. We're not going to believe that. And I'm telling you, it was something else. So yeah, things changed little by little. My identity changed. I started to become someone who just absolutely knows that she's not a food addict. So where I am today, that was 2016 when I left that program, right? So now it's 2026. So what happened in those 10 years? Those 10 years of me letting go of the food scale, letting go of that 12-step program, letting go of a sponsor, it was really hard for me, I will say, because I was, for 9.5 years, remember, I was in a food program. This was a tight-knit community. We all weighed and measured our food together. We would show up to places and everybody would be eating out of their Tupperware because everybody was committing their food to their sponsor every single morning. And so we all ate pretty similarly, and we went to meetings together and we hung out together. And these were the people I did life with. I called them throughout the day. I hung out with them. I went hiking with them. And then when I left that program, it was I was by myself. I was alone, and it was really freaking hard. It was literally one of the hardest seasons of my life. But I wasn't alone because God was with me, and there were a few people that stuck and stayed. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm so grateful. And I absolutely know without a shadow of a doubt, this is the path that I was meant to go down. So yeah, it was hard at first. Like I said, I I immersed myself into a different community because I was like, okay, well, I know I need community. Like I know I need accountability. I need people. I need to be walking through life with people. I need to be walking a spiritual life. I mean, I knew all these things. I had learned all these things from my previous experience in 12 step. Hello, anyone who's saying hi. And so I knew that I was going to need to incorporate those into my life and make that a way of life, or continue to make that a way of life. So I was like, I was okay with that. I was just not going to do it the FA way. I needed to figure out, or let God help me to figure out how I was going to do that in a different way, walking with God, walking by the Spirit. So I went to church and I met some amazing friends. This was back in 2016, who are still my friends to this day, 10 years later. I adore them. We talk often. They live in California, the majority of them, and I live in Hawaii. And so, yeah, so I lived life learning how to intuitively eat. And I learned how to have a different relationship with exercise, and to have a different motivation for exercising, instead of I got to get in shape for this, or I need to look a certain way for this guy. It just became all about, what do I want to do for myself and for my future, and as a way of life that's sustainable and balanced. I'm trying to connect my earbud. Okay, cool. um yeah, so I learning so much through that time where I had no food restrictions. I didn't restrict myself. I allowed myself to have flour and sugar and all these things that I hadn't had for 9.5 years. And I do remember the first time that I ever had like a sandwich after 9.5 years. The first time I had chocolate after 9.5 years, I didn't do it alone. I was really afraid. I was like, oh my God, what if it's true? What if I do end up flat on my face and I do eat this chocolate bar and I end up binging and purging again? Like, the last thing I wanted to do was to be proven wrong, or to be laughed at, or to go back into hell, even though God had already freed me. And so I had some people around me, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. And it was really a miracle, because I allowed myself to have the chocolate, to have the sandwich, to have the bread. And what I realized was, like, I'm perfectly fine. This is just food. I had made it out to be so much more than what it really is. And I'm so grateful, because it's so much more about food. It's about your identity, about knowing who you are. And the more I know that I'm a child of God, that I was born fearfully, wonderfully made, that I was born with a spirit of power, love, and self-control. When I believe that, when I'm rooted in that, I'm not going to be able to believe other things that oppose that. I'm not going to be able to believe that I'm a food addict. Yeah, of course, I might do something because I'm human, and I might want to eat more cake than I planned, but that doesn't mean that I'm morally wrong or that I'm broken. It just means I'm human, and I made a choice, and I get to make a different choice, and I get to tell myself, hey, what do we want? Like, what do we want for an outcome? Do we want to be someone who doesn't have any self-control? No, we can be someone who has self-control 100%. I can remind myself over and over that I am a person who has self-control, and that is what I've done for the past 10 years now, having come out of that program, is someone who has self-control. I still, to this day, I mean, it's kind of gotten to a point where it's I don't want to ever not be grateful for this, but it's gotten to the point where it's become such a normal thing for me that I don't just break down in tears of gratitude because I was able to eat a sandwich and stop because I was full and then put the rest in the fridge. I remember when I had that experience and I was like, I just couldn't stop crying because I was like, I never thought I'd be able to be a person that that once she started eating something that she could just stop. And like, I'm that person. I eat when I'm hungry, I stop when I'm full. I eat parts of sandwiches and I put them in the refrigerator and I literally forget about them. I was not able to forget about food in my past. I wasn't able to forget about the chips in the cupboard or the ice cream in the freezer, or they would call to me and I wouldn't be able to have peace and freedom until I just either threw them away or put dish soap on them, because even if I threw things in the garbage, sometimes I'd go back and retrieve them when I was in my addiction. And so now today I can have ice cream in the freezer. I can eat 2 scoops and put the rest in the freezer and literally forget about it for months. That is so new for me. I mean, it's not new anymore because this has been going on now for like almost a decade, but it's something that I just quite frankly did not think could ever happen for me. I just thought I was fundamentally different because I don't know, I was a food addict, but I'm not. So there's so much that I've learned, and I've learned a lot about the nervous system. It's so imperative that we learn about the nervous system and how the nervous system works and how our subconscious works, and giving ourselves compassion. I mean, there was one time, so let me recap. In 2006, I got sober and I stopped binging and purging my food, and I got into a recovery program. And then, so 2006. So then in 2016, almost like 10 years later, I left that recovery program. And now I've been, doing life intuitively and walking by the Spirit. And everything that I've learned has gotten me to this place where I know how to trust myself and I know how to make decisions. And I do it with God on the daily. And I do work a spiritual, like I live a spiritual life, but it's not regimented. There's no rules or programs or systems or anything that I'm following. I don't have a sponsor. I don't know. I have people in my life that are my friends. I do life with my people. I do coach people, but I'm not following any kind of like framework, I guess you could say. I've taken everything that I've learned and I've made a way of life for myself. And I totally forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, I know, I remember. So, remember COVID? Do you remember COVID? During COVID, that was one of the hardest times of my life. I had moved in with this guy, and it was the first time I had had any kind of relationship in sobriety as an adult. I definitely moved in with him too fast. I had a friend tell me that I was moving in with him too fast. I did not heed her wise advice, and I moved in with him. And then shortly after that, I was having doubts, and I communicated those doubts to him, which set him off into a relapse, and he went back to doing drugs. And then COVID hit right off the bat, and wow, it was tough. It was a really, really hard time. I lost my job. I was gonna have to move out of his place. I was in so much chronic pain. At one point, I think I had like 7 cold sores all over my mouth because I was so stressed out. And I ended up one day going to the grocery store, feeling so out of control, buying a cake, calling my friend and saying, I'm going home right now to go eat this cake, to binge and then purge it. I'm aware of what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. I'm not gonna let this freak me out, but this is what I'm doing, and I don't know as though I'm willing to do anything different. And so I went home, I ate the cake, I threw it up. It felt horrible because I hadn't binged and purged at that point for years. I mean, at that point it had been 12 years since I'd even thought about binging and purging. And there I was in the middle of COVID, and I consciously chose to do this. I was very aware. I mean, I called someone and told them I was doing it. But the cool thing is that I extended myself so much grace and self-compassion, which was something I just used to not do. And I said, you know what? You're in such a high state of stress right now that you are utilizing an old coping strategy that just doesn't work anymore. And so you resorted back to a way that you used to regulate your nervous system. and this is not working anymore. Like, you tried it and it used to work and it's no longer working. In fact, it's dysregulating your nervous system. So we're going to have to find new ways to regulate our nervous system. And that's when, I started doing more walking and going out in nature. And that was the one and only time that in the past 20 years, that I ever resorted back to bulimia. And I'm so grateful that I just gave myself the compassion to just not freak out and be like, oh my God, I have to go back to a 12-step program. I have to go back to that program. Oh my God, I'm a food addict. No, it's that my nervous system was fucking shot during COVID after all this stuff that had happened with the boyfriend, him going back to drugs. And I mean, it was intense. It was intense. And yeah, I resorted to a nervous system regulation tactic that I had picked up when I was young. And I'm grateful that I've learned so many more coping strategies since then. So yeah, where am I today? Today I live in Hawaii in my dream location, and I literally live in my dream home right now, and I'm living my dream life. I can't believe actually that this is my life. Anything is possible with God. Anything. If there's a mountain that feels like it cannot be moved, He is the mountain mover. And things take time. I'm not gonna fucking like bullshit with you. It's taken some time. It's taken some work. I have worked my ass off to get where I am today. There's been some hard moments of me going off the path and being away from community and not knowing where I was going to go and losing friends. And there's been some hard moments, but God has been with me every single step of the way. And now I am here in this place where I feel like I live closer to heaven than I've ever lived. I mean, I live in Hawaii. It's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous here. And I get to live a life that feels almost perfect. It's not perfect at all. It's not perfect, but God continues to shed the layers of shame and guilt and anxiety and insecurity and addiction and whatever might be in my life. God has rid me of all these things and continues to, as long as I look to Him. And yes, it's a slow process, but it's a beautiful process. And you look back and you're like, holy crap, I can't believe 20 years have gone by. I can't believe it. Wow, I can't believe that I'm speaking about these things as though there's something that happened like 10 years ago, because when I was going through it, it felt like that season of my life was never going to end, that there would be no other season. I couldn't even picture myself where I am today, and here I am today. I guess the difference is I just never gave up and just like brought all of my pain and sorrow as honestly as I could to God, and cried out so many times, just like, God, I don't know where else to turn. I truly don't know where else to turn. And then, God's brought so many different things into my life to help me along this path. At one point it was this 12-step program, and then at one point it wasn't. And so yeah, I'm really beautiful. There's still some things that I'm healing from in my life. I still have to retrain my brain every single day to get rid of limiting beliefs and put in new beliefs. And I still depend on God every day. I have to. And I'm not like praying constantly, although I don't know, I wish that I was praying constantly, but I'm not. Sometimes I forget about God for a whole entire half a day. But God really is, I don't know, God is the man. God is the thing. I'm living proof, true living proof that change is possible. I'm 50 years old, and I feel like I'm pretty good shape for 50. And I do believe that those 10 years of not eating flour or sugar and just eating whole nourishing foods, not drinking, I still don't drink to this day. I believe that's really healed my body in so many ways. But I also really did a lot of damage to my body. When I was in my addiction, drinking, I was abusing my body so badly. I did so much damage to my body, my bones. I was diagnosed with full-blown osteoporosis when I was 40 years old. So this is why I'm adamant about weight training, so that I can build up my bone density to be stronger. and I do what I can today to nourish my body, to be good to my body, to slow down, and to go from years of binging and purging and obsession and fear and anxiety and shame and guilt and craziness to a place of freedom today. So there's hope for you. And last thing I guess I'll say is that, if I put myself out there as a coach. Now, I'm an artist, but the same thing applies to 12-step programs. Like, someone who has literally been transformed, someone who's been through things, I believe uniquely qualifies them, whether they have no degree or not, to be able to spiritually help someone get from point A to point B. So if you're someone who has struggled with food, you're someone who is struggling in general with addiction, please feel free to reach out to me and apply for coaching. You can just chat with me one time. I have a booking link that I can send you after you apply. There's some questions I want to ask just to see if I'm if I'm the right person to help. And so I'm grateful that he changed my heart, my mind, and taught me to trust him, and taught me to trust my body, taught me to be powerful, a powerful child of God, leaning on him and knowing that the character of God is infinitely, abundantly more beautiful than we could even ask, think, or imagine. God is so good. And I hope that this video has helped in some way. And thanks for watching. Bye.